can see, my desk is a mess, and I'm trying to balance my phone on like something. My name is Nicole, and I decided to record a video because recently something bad happened to me, and it was a really difficult experience. And I know that many people are going through it, but some not as severe, some really severe. So I wanted to record a video and put out there what's happening to most people, I guess. So I suffer from severe anxiety, and I didn't know that till 2 days ago, 3 days ago. And how I found out, it was kind of a weird and exhilarating experience, which I didn't accept at first because I didn't want to accept that I have anxiety and it's so severe. But yeah, I'm going to tell you my journey of discovering that I have anxiety basically. So it all started about 2 weeks ago. I go to the gym every day, usually regularly, to try and keep fit, obviously. And I started feeling super tired. And it happened to me before where I started feeling tired, and I just assumed it was my iron deficiency because it happened to me, as I said once before. And I went home, I found blood, but again I wasn't alarmed because it was something that happened to me before. So I just took iron sachets and that's it. And the blood stopped. So I thought that by a few days I would get better. Then the next day I started feeling bad again. So my dad had to pick me up from school and I went home and I just stayed the whole day in bed. Over the weekend I started experiencing other symptoms, and they started getting worse and worse. Like some symptoms include I started getting super tired to the point like that we're outside and I have to sleep, or I start shivering a little, I start losing my breath, um, headaches, symptoms like these. Then over the weekend, that happened basically, and on Monday is my longest day of school because I start at 8 a.m. and finish at 5 p.m. Around 3 p.m. I started feeling super unwell again, and I called my mom, like, "Mom, call the doctor because I'm not feeling well." I was getting worried. I'm like, "What's wrong with me?" And she called the doctor, booked an appointment, and she picked me up and we went. While I was in the waiting room, I started shivering from the inside, like shivering like this. You know when you have fever and you start shivering? Exactly like that. And I also started feeling like I'm going to throw up, but not as severe, like a bit, like your tummy, a small feeling. And I went inside to the doctor, and he looked at me and he was like, "You have a lot of tension." I'm like, "Okay, what am I supposed to do? I know I have tension, it's not a big deal." And then he said that my muscles are infected, and I'm like, "Whoa, infected what? What is this?" And he didn't tell me much, basically. He just told me to get an urgent blood test because he wanted to know if there's something wrong. So we called my friend's mom, she's a nurse, and we booked an appointment for the next day. The next day I didn't go to school because the doctor recommended that I'd stay home. And that night we went to get the blood. When I went, I started shaking again, shivering. And oh, another thing I didn't mention is both times at the doctor and at the clinic, I started bawling my eyes out and I couldn't explain it. It wasn't something I could physically control. It wasn't like I wanted to cry, it just started happening and really, really bad. And the nurse was a bit taken aback because I was crying like someone had died, but I couldn't explain it. And my mom was so worried. She told me like, is there something wrong? What's happening to you? But there wasn't something specific that I could point to, that I could tell her, oh listen, my fish died, oh listen, my friends hurt me. There wasn't anything major that was different, just I was crying and I couldn't control it. Then, after I took the blood, I went home and I didn't say anything the whole ride, because another symptom that I was experiencing was I didn't talk much. And even when people were talking to me, I'm having a conversation with someone, I would literally like blank out. They're like speaking and I'm like, and I wouldn't understand everything. I wouldn't pay attention to what they're saying, not because I wanted to, again. It was something, oh, I couldn't even do my homework, because when I see all those words, my mind goes pew. And then at that point I was worried. I said to myself, oh, there's something really, really wrong with me, and I'm going to die, because they weren't just normal symptoms. It was so severe. It's not going to like be the same on camera. Anyways, so at that point all I had to do was wait for the results. On Wednesday, the next day, I tried to go to school, and because every day I make it a point to go to school with my mom in order to have a coffee with her, have a chat. So I went. After she left for work, I started feeling horrible again. I called her, I'm like, Mom, please pick me up, I'm not feeling well. She took me home, spent a whole day in bed, same thing. The day after, oh, and I tried to go to school every day because I'm in high school and it's my last year of high school, so it's not a good thing missing lessons. Every day I had something, every day I had school, and after school I have private lessons, and therefore I'm really busy, you know. The next day I tried to go to school again, and I took coffee. Specifically, I ordered a coffee in the morning when my mom took me to school. And she left again, and it was time for class, so I was walking back to like the school. I felt so bad. I started losing my breath, and when you lose your breath, you start losing your breath, you can't focus like on where you're going. You start seeing a bit of black, and I started feeling like I was about to faint. I couldn't see, you know, and I still fought it and went to class. And I couldn't use the lift because this particular block doesn't have a lift, so I had to use the stairs. So when I went to class, I just put my head like this on the desk and I just started trying to regain my breath. But I started panicking a lot because it wasn't something normal. I'm asthmatic, so I know what asthma feels like. It wasn't the same thing. So I started trying to regain my breath, but it wasn't working. Then, as I said, I panicked, and there was my classmate next to me. I told her, can I please use your phone to call my dad, because my phone isn't working for some reason. I called my dad. I told him, Dad, please. I was almost crying. My voice cracked, so it was that severe. I told him, Dad, please pick me up, take me to hospital ASAP. I'm not feeling well. And he said okay, and I told my friend, I'm going home. Like, I'm going to hospital. Then I tried to stand up because I was shivering. My classmate even told me, oh my god, you're shivering, like what's wrong with you? And I tried to stand up slowly, because when you start losing your breath, your legs turn to jelly. That's the best way I can describe it. So I couldn't stand up properly. Whilst all of this is happening, the funny thing is the teacher was in the front explaining, but she doesn't even she doesn't even care, you know. This was happening and she was in the front not paying attention. So I tried getting up. By my second attempt I got up and I got to the middle of the class. I told my teacher, listen, I'm leaving. And she ran behind me because I just strutted out of the class, and she ran behind me and she was like, you're going to leave your bag here? I told her yes, my classmate will take it to the receptionist, because I didn't even have the strength to put my bag on my shoulders and walk with it, because my bag is like quite heavy, so I left it there. By the time I arrived to the gate, I started bawling my eyes out again, the same symptoms like before, shivering and losing my breath. I couldn't even see where I was walking. I was like hearing voices, seeing people, and just like walking out. Then I sat on the wall waiting for my dad, and he arrived and I couldn't breathe. Like the whole journey to the hospital, I was like, yeah, it was so bad. My dad, I, I gave him a heart attack, I think. And when we arrived, I didn't even have the strength to stand up and go to the emergency ward by myself. I told my dad to get me a wheelchair, and he got me a wheelchair, and we went inside. And usually, because the hospital system here is really bad, usually if you come to hospital, you take probably more than an hour waiting in line for your turn. But I was so bad that they let me in after 10 minutes, and she took one glance at me and she told me, listen, stop panicking, take deep breaths, and she sent me to another ward. In the other ward, I spent about 30 to 40 minutes waiting for my turn to get checked up. When I went inside, the doctor looked at me. We told her that I took blood tests, she looked for them, and she said that everything was fine. At that point, I was so confused, because the symptoms that I was experiencing weren't normal, they weren't fine. I felt like I was about to die when that happened to me. I was in a wheelchair, how was I fine? And she took, because as you can see I still have bruising, I think, yeah, here. She took another blood test, and this was to check the oxygen level in the blood. And again, it was fine. I was so frustrated that I started quarreling with the doctor. I told her, how can I be fine? My muscles are hurting, I'm so weak, what's wrong with me? And then she just looked at me and she went, I think you have anxiety. I, excuse me? I knew I had anxiety, but it wasn't because of anxiety. At least that's what I was saying inside my head all the time. I couldn't accept that it was anxiety, you know? When she told me that, I couldn't accept it. Then, after it just started to sink in, I said, I have problems in my life. I think it could be anxiety, it could be anxiety. Like, after I got that reassurance that maybe what I have is anxiety, I looked, the car ride back home, I looked on symptoms online. Like, I went on Google and just typed in anxiety symptoms. Everything that I was experiencing was written on the various sites that I searched in. Fatigue, muscles aching, you know, all this good stuff. And yeah, at that point, I, I said, oh my god, I have severe anxiety. How am I going to study? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? But I'm a strong person, so I know I could overcome it. But the thing that annoys me the most is sometimes something triggers you, like that day when I had the severe anxiety attack and I went to hospital. That day was the coffee probably. And sometimes I'd be in a restaurant, my brother says something annoys me and I just start having a panic attack. I go outside, I start crying, and I don't make a scene obviously, but because I go somewhere where there aren't any people, but it's a really bad feeling. And even though sometimes you're having an attack and you feel alone, you feel like there's no one there, you feel like no one cares, like you have many people in your life who care, and if you don't, there are like 9 billion people, 7 billion people on the planet that could help you. You could go on apps, talk to people. I made this video specifically to raise awareness that you are not alone. There's always someone there to help you, even though they may be in another country or you just haven't found that person yet. And most importantly, go out, don't stay inside. If you're having problems with your family, go out. Don't let anyone fight with you, don't let anyone cause trouble for you. Just do things where you know you're going to be calm, hang out with people that you know aren't going to cause problems for you, and never seclude yourself, because that's the biggest problem I had. I started staying in and not going out for about a month and a half purposely because I wanted to study, and that was the biggest thing, because then I started fighting with my parents more, and that caused me to that caused my anxiety to get really bad, basically. Yeah, and if you ever need any help with anything, I'm going to link my Instagram in the description purposely, so that for all those people suffering, for all those people who think they're alone, just know I'm here for you, and you can just come and talk to me on Instagram, because this isn't a thing where you should feel alone. So yeah, thank you guys for listening to this 16, 17, 18-minute video, and I love you, I guess. Thank you, bye.